In this example, we're going to do conditional formatting and use some sparklines to help with the interpretation of some item analysis results. So in this made-up example, we have a short 10-item test made up of polytomous items, where respondents can score 0, 1, 2, or 3 on every item. We have data from, 150 people who took the test. So we have counts of the number of people who got each response, who scored at each score point for each item, and we also have those converted into percents. We've also calculated an average score. We'd like to make this table a little more user-friendly so you can see it in a glance some more of the features of the items. One way to do that we've already seen is to take this average item score and apply some conditional formatting to it so we can see more easily how difficult the items were with respect to each other. So I'm going to go with conditional formatting, color scales, and then I'll just choose one here, the green to white. Problem is, let's say I know that this is going to be used in a publication, then that won't be printed in color, so I'm going to convert this to black and white. I'll select that section, go to conditional formatting, manage rules, and I'm going to edit this rule, changing it from white, and let's do it to a nice dark gray, since we're now going to be printing in grayscale. So there we go. When it's not too dark, we can still read our numbers in here, but we can see the darkest cells represent the easiest items. The ones who examine these score the highest. The lightest scores, the lightest shading represents the most difficult. So just at a glance, it's much easier to see. We can immediately see that item 2 was the most difficult. Item 5, items 3 through 5 are all very similar in difficulty, and towards the easy end. Items 6 through 8 are very similar in difficulty and towards the middle end of the spectrum. Now I want to get a better look at the distribution of people's responses. So what I'm going to do is create some sparklines. I have an empty column here that I've created in advance. Click on Insert. And in this case, I'm going to use a column sparkline. So if I select here, I get a dialog box that asks me, where's the data I want to use to create these sparklines? So I click my icon here and select my data. I'm going to use the percentages in this case. Click the icon again to accept that range. Because I had pre-selected the range where I wanted the results to be placed, the sparklines, it's already included in the location range dialog. Click OK. And what that does is creates a little bar graph for me inside each of the cells that shows the distribution of responses. So we can see, for example, on item 9, that roughly an equal number of people scored 1, 2, and 3, and almost no one got a score of 0. We can see that on item 5, the largest group of people got scored all 3 points, where very few people got a 0, 1, or 2. The problem with this is these are all relative with respect to the maximum value within each cell. So it goes from the minimum to the maximum. So in this case, the minimum value is 8 in this cell and 39. So in this cell, 39 goes all the way up to the top. And in this cell, 47 goes all the way to the top. When we have graphs side by side, we want them to have the same vertical scale. So the way we equalize that vertical scale is to select our sparklines, and we see this new set of options come up, the sparkline tools under design. If I go over to axis, I want to have, you can have it choose automatically, but make it the same for all sparklines, or choose a custom value. I'm going to choose a custom value in this case. And I know these are percent, so I want them to go from 0 for the minimum. And I want the maximum to go up to a value of 1. So there we go. Now we have a meaningful scale for each of these cells, where all the way up to the top would be 100% and all the way down to the bottom would be 0%. So now we can see at a glance how the responses, how examining responses were distributed across the number of possible scores. I want to adjust this again because I know it's by default it's blue, these spark lines. I'm going to change the spark line color. I'll make it a nice kind of medium gray, because I know this is going to be printed in black and white. But I'd also like to emphasize one last thing. I want to know what's the most common score on each item. So in other words, what's the mode for every item? And I can easily do that with these spark lines here. I'll highlight my spark lines again and go up to this marker color. The high point, which is the maximum value of each spark line, I'm going to give it a different color. I'm going to make it a nice dark gray to stand out from the lighter grays. So now we can immediately see at a glance. Before, where we just had a table of numbers, we can see the relative difficulty of the items. And then we can also see the distribution of scores just at a glance for each item. We can also see the mode for each item. So we've got a lot of additional information in making these more easily interpretable at a quick glance.